17 days until the election. And what could happen to your second stimulus checks or multiple stimulus checks between now and the election day? And if there's a Trump loss, what would happen the day after election night and before inauguration day? And could there be a push, or is there a push right now for MSC, multiple stimulus checks? Big development, new poll results, new details, and new calls from the Trump campaign. And this is a lot of stuff to digest, but I'm here to get you through the new morning with the great news across the board. This is 28. Hey, good morning, everybody. Hope you are good and safe. Hope your midday is going well on a Saturday morning. It's nice and warm here in Los Angeles, potentially our last day of heat, and then we get into that cool, brisk fall weather. So hope it's good and well where you are. Drop in comments. I love to hear how the weather is where you are today. Thank you for joining me. Go to the Funds channel, subscribe. 294, baby. We're on our path to get to 300,000. We're about 6,000 away. So let's get it. If you've not subscribed, please subscribe. And also hit that alert button on the Funds channel so you get alert when a new video goes live. Also like this video. In this video, I will be going over a lot of breaking details. First, the push for multiple stimulus checks. Second, the potential of anything getting done legislatively in the next 2 weeks. Third, the push for executive orders. Those are not certainly off the table. They are front and center. They're in the front of the table actually now, right in front of the president. This is where we're pushing it. And guess which day it is? It's Saturday. Then the issue about what would happen after election night, what would happen after inauguration day or re-inauguration day, and the new poll numbers and why that means what could happen for stimulus checks by executive order become more apparent by the minute. All right, let's get to the breaking news. I'm going to start with the poll numbers. Purple Power, we have been focused on executive orders for upwards of several weeks. And new reports today say that the president may be concerned about doing a second stimulus package deal with Nancy Pelosi because it will look like he gave in and gave her a win and ultimately may hurt him in his bid to be reelected. Well, on the other hand, if you don't want to give her a win, then why not do it by executive orders? That seems the most logical path. If you're worried that legislatively doing a deal with Nancy Pelosi looks like giving her a win and that you're rolling over, then do it by executive orders. Send out stimulus checks with your name on it. Look like the person who got us through the finish line, while impasses in the Congress were blamed upon congressmen, not blamed upon the White House. It seems so logical. Do the executive orders, Mr. President. And then there's this. New poll numbers out today indicate that the race is not going well and indicates that had the president done executive orders, which I have been calling for upwards of 2 months, the race numbers would be a dead heat. Let's look at it. In the swing states, it shows that Biden's up 2.3 percentage points in Florida, up 6.2 percentage points in Pennsylvania, up 7.9 percentage points in Michigan, 3.7 points in North Carolina, in Arizona 3.5%, and Wisconsin 7.6%. It shows that in Iowa, Trump is up 1.2%, and in Ohio, Trump is up 1.7%. Now, polls are often wrong, and we certainly understand in 2016 they were very wrong. The question is, when you see percentage points of 6% or 7%, even if you consider 3 percentage points wrong or 4% wrong, it still shows Biden leading in more swing states than Trump. The bottom line is, had Trump done executive orders, it would be clearly a dead heat in this race. But if Trump did the executive orders still today, It could turn the election around. It's at this point that Trump should really understand from the purple power that if he wishes to win, and we're not endorsing any political candidate, I'm just saying what would get you your stimulus checks, is suggesting to Trump, hey, if you really want to win and make it a dead heat, send out the stimulus checks. Today is what, the 16th or the 17th? Well, 10 days from now, we would get the stimulus checks in our hands before election night. Moreover, it would absolutely be the impetus of redefining the situation. The landscape as we sit here tonight, or this morning, is sort of a mixed bag of you to blame. It doesn't really pair off well to the American people. And a new percentage poll from NBC Wall Street Journal shows that Trump is down 29% against Biden with people over 65 years of age because of Trump's policies about senior citizens. Now, yesterday you saw that the COLA number, which I detail on this channel, with Social Security, it proposes just a 1.3 percentage point increase for COLA. And then on Friday, a bunch of wonderful Democratic representatives introduced a emergency bill to increase the COLA for SSDI, SSI, Social Security, railroad benefits, and veterans, and also Social Security members by about 3.5%. It's that type of reaction that Americans resonate well. And that's why even doing something, even though it doesn't become law yet, may ultimately help Trump. It's when he's at his best is when he realizes he needs to do something. Trump last night said, "Can you imagine if I lose?" This is exact words. "Can you imagine if I lose? My whole life, what am I going to do? What am I going to say? I lost to the worst candidate in the history of politics. I'm not going to feel so good. Maybe I'll have to leave the country. I don't know." Take those words for what you think about them to be, but the bottom line is that Trump needs to understand that doing the current policy, which is negotiating, blaming, is not working in the polls. It clearly has not worked in the polls. In the recent weeks in which I've detailed calls for executive orders, calls for raising your stimulus, deal with Nancy, blaming Nancy, it has not worked for purposes of poll numbers. What works is giving people money. So purple power, push on executive orders. Absolutely, categorically push. Now, the great news as we start the new morning is that there's upwards of $800 billion the president can do for executive orders for stimulus checks. So you know what? Let's do executive orders for multiple stimulus checks. Executive order for MSC. Imagine how that would change the poll race overnight. Imagine how the landscape of this political campaign would be changed overnight if the president says, you know what, I'm doing executive orders for stimulus checks, and I'm not just doing one stimulus check, I'm sending out 3 stimulus checks because the Democrats should have given you multiple stimulus checks. You've been waiting around too long. It was not your fault. I'm going to send out a stimulus check for $2,000, $2,000. I'm going to send out $6,000 of stimulus checks to the American people because you're owed multiple stimulus checks. Imagine the reaction Americans would have. Now, ultimately, if he does that, I would like a little bit of credit. Can you just put my name on the bottom of the check, say thank you, LALATE? I just don't really understand why someone in the White House does not comprehend how this is a winning policy. The winning policy is people are entitled to multiple stimulus checks, MSCs. The winning policy is that people have been waiting for multiple stimulus checks. The winning policy is that Harris, your opponent, says you're entitled to multiple stimulus checks, and yet her party with the Temple Doom has not given you multiple stimulus checks. The winning policy is, you know what? I'm going to do exactly what my opponent promised to do but didn't do. I'm going to set out multiple stimulus checks, and I'm going to put my name on them, and they'll be there by election night. It seems almost like a no-brainer. It seems like a no-brainer. Imagine someone who's unable to pay for their rent, their money, their food, their car, their electricity, their water, their gas, suddenly sees a $6,000 check arrive days before election night. And it's followed by a press campaign that says, hey, I'm doing exactly what Senator Harris did propose in her bill, but she didn't get it to the finish line. That Temple Doom took away your multiple stimulus checks. The Temple Doom did not want you to have the Harris bill. Temple Doom did not want you to have the Sanders bill. Trump has always played the Sanders versus, political campaign pitch very well. Imagine how that would change the landscape of the American presidential campaign. All right, so let's turn to the next issue. Let's say Trump literally doesn't do anything and sits there and says, nothing. And you don't see a stimulus package, you don't see stimulus check, you see nothing, you saw no executive order by election night. And Trump just simply wings it and loses. Then what? Well, the push is then underway in a very strange, murky period of November to January as to whether you're going to get stimulus checks or stimulus package. I don't know. I really don't know, because it's dependent on what happens in the House. It depends on what happens in the Senate. It depends on whether incumbents who lose their seats in the Senate may ultimately roll over and say, yeah, you know what, I'll do some help for you because I'm about to leave in 2 months. I'll help you now. Or maybe they'll say, no, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to, take my time packing up my furniture, and you can wait till January to get your stimulus package. At that point, the push, the urging, the campaign, the movement for MSC has to be very loud and crisp, because at that point, we're not from first stimulus package or second stimulus package. We're now heading into third stimulus package. And at that point, you would not see a stimulus package onto a congressional floor for a vote until February. You wouldn't see the checks until March or April. And at that point, 1 year will have passed since when you're owed a stimulus check. You are owed your next stimulus check in April of 2020, this year. You're owed one in May, in June, in July. And imagine being told by any elected official, whether it's a Democrat or Republican, says, hey, here's your stimulus check in April 2021 next year. Here's your stimulus check. For the last 12 months, you've been waiting around for stimulus checks for months. MSC, folks. I want to have you understand the severity and the implications of a win and a loss. I also want you to understand that you can't vote for people based upon what's the worst case scenario for either, because ultimately they can turn the situation around. So what's important to understand is that the period to get stimulus is now. The period after election night is murky, and the period after inauguration night, after election, after January, is deeply problematic. Ironically, as I launched MSC on this channel yesterday, the campaign for MSC, Peter DeFazio and others are now looking and saying, you know what? My electorate needs more than one stimulus check. It's just not enough. $1,200 is not going to cut it. We need more money. What are you expecting for this weekend? Well, we're expecting for this weekend negotiations from the Temple Doom and Steve Mnuchin to continue. They're continuing about an hour a day. They're not telling us what they're saying. He's expected to keep on going higher. He's expected to keep on agreeing to language of the bill. He's expected to keep on tinkering with things. Whether this tinkering will be much of anything, we don't really know. It's incredibly great news where his bill is. It's not incredibly great news about the spinelessness of congressional leaders at this point. Mark Cuban overnight had a series of remarks which basically mirror what I say on this channel, which is that suddenly every politician is complicit in the situation. They're accomplices in the inability to get stuff done. And he says, Mark Cuban specifically, that's a lack of ability for anyone to stand up and say anything. Someone in one of the comments to Morning's LALATE yesterday said, when did Nancy Pelosi become a dictator? It's literally become a one-woman show determining the entire fate of this country. It's because the rest of Congress had become spineless wimps, and they literally let one person do everything on behalf of the entire country. She's not elected to represent the entire country. She's elected to be Speaker of the House. She's not elected to negotiate your stimulus package. And ultimately, people always ask me, why is this happening this way? Because no one in Congress wants to stand up for anything on any subject matter of any accord. And now, while we talk about the problem solvers, we talk about the Blue Dogs, we talk about the New Democrat coalition, they ultimately don't want to say anything in a day in which I'm really itching. They don't want to stand up and say anything about anyone. And that's the purpose of the purple power. The purpose of the purple power is to say, no, we need multiple stimulus checks. There needs to be a voice. And I'm that voice for you. No one's speaking up before you, on behalf of you. The airlines have lobbyists. The hotels have lobbyists. Who's your lobbyist? That's the spirit of this channel. The spirit of this channel is that no one's giving you a voice. No one is speaking up on behalf of the American people. And this is why Purple Power needs a voice. And I'm your voice. Take this video, tag your politicians, share this video with other elected officials and say, hey, we need MSCs. I don't care what happens in the polls. I don't care who gets elected. Do MSCs, because ultimately what's going to happen is you all need to be gone. Let me answer some incredible questions from yesterday. 1,800 questions. BJ, there's nothing but a political ploy. This is nothing but a congressional political ploy. Because knowing that none of them deserve to be reelected, has anyone in the office right now done anything for the American people? No. I'm answering your question, BJ, no. Other than just talk about it for months while Americans go hungry? No, they've done nothing. All they've done is collect a pension and collect a check. Pamela Farmer, this is ridiculous. None of them care what happens to the American people. They don't care. I got to tell you, there was a very good report on the start of CNN this morning, and I want to be very careful in my comments because I don't want to be disrespectful to the elderly. But it basically said that elected politicians now, for the vast majority, are in their 70s to 80s years of age. These are people who are looking at retirement, are looking at their own pension fund, and really don't necessarily represent the core of the American public that is not 70 to 80 years of age. And they don't understand the issues. They are out of touch with the reality of situations back in their home state. And we really need a time for term limits and perhaps consider whether or not we shouldn't have elected officials who are 85 years old, 89 years old, that have simply sat in office for 30-something years and really don't know what's going on or care to know what's going on. Clarence Foss, why doesn't President Trump do the executive orders? Joseph, the problems that our government and politicians are set up for failure. Steve, nothing like blackmailing Americans for the votes. Wow. Stacy Palmer, we need that money now. Wanda, if Trump is so onto everything, he's really acting like he's dumbfounded. John, if stimulus comes after the election, that's a joke how corrupt our government is. Mallory, if he's ready to sign a bill, why doesn't he just go ahead and do it by executive order? Very good, great comment. Susan, if Trump loses, I don't believe us Americans will see one red cent. Joan, whatever we the American people are hurting, we need the money now. Linda, a lot of Americans that are on low-income societies will not be able to make it 18 days. Pelosi's making the children starving. She needs to be gone. Trump doesn't need to go around her. Trump does need to go around her to get it signed, since the agreement can't be reached. If that's possible, just get it done. Kimberly, Debbie, President Trump, just do an executive order. We need our money. Corby, if he's not elected, why would she hand her Democratic president a catastrophic economic plan? Brad, Nancy Pelosi needs to go. Kim, hey, President Trump, need executive orders for American peoples, please. Let's end with that. Strong message. Stronger message is hashtag MSC. Go on social media, share this video, tag your politicians, tag them MSC. Get the message out. We need multiple stimulus checks. We need executive orders. This is Saturday. The president has 3 campaign stops per day, and he absolutely is under fire. He's behind in the polls. He needs to pull a rabbit out of a hat. He needs to come from behind if he wants to win. Otherwise, he's going home. And going home is not an option potentially in his mind. Our option is executive orders. Do the executive orders, President Trump. Get the stimulus into people's hands. Get the MSCs in our hands. And that could be the difference between a loss or a win. Go to the French channel, subscribe, because I'm trying to get you to the finish line. And whether it's pushing a president to do executive orders when he's behind with the polls, or, figuring out a campaign strategy for him to win that has been based upon us getting stimulus checks, I'm figuring out every angle I can to get you your money. Also, like this video. Coming up next is Afternoons LA, 3:30 Pacific Standard Time. 2 hours of programming. Don't miss a minute of it. As always, stay informed, stay smiling, and stay at LA for more.